Hello, everybody. Today we're taking a look at, the Enchanted Cave 2. If you've never heard of the Enchanted Cave, it was actually a Flash game for free. And you can go check it out if you want to. In fact, this game also has a free component, which I'll talk about later, and it's actually a very good thing for you. Yes, you. This is a game made by one person, as far as I can tell. Dustinox? Dustinox is the developer name that it goes by, but his name is Dustin. I don't even know how you pronounce that last name, to be honest. Auxier? Auxier? It's probably not pronounced like an X, but I'm just going to say Dustin. That's his name. And it is a roguelike. A real roguelike, as in tile-based movement, turn-based, although it has some non-roguey elements and a fairly different combat system, and it's got a couple of unique features that I think make it stand out and make it worth your time to look at. So, to start off with, I am this strange lizard person, which is very, very wonderful, and basically, this is a very early impressions. I've only been through a couple of runs, because I kind of got the idea already. It's not like an extremely complex game, but that's not the point. It's supposed to be very, very replayable, very enjoyable, and to keep you coming back for more, because there are a lot of dungeon floors to go through. A lot. Now, as I mentioned before, this game was actually a Flash title. The first game was actually a Flash title for free, and it is quite enjoyable if you want to go play it. Now, this game also has a free component. It is also available on Flash game websites like Congregate, for instance, and you can actually go and play it. That basically acts as an extended demo. You can go to those places and play a sort of slightly cut down version of this game. And that's actually really cool because it lets you experience the game and see if it's for you for free. And if you go to the Steam page, which of course I'll link you to, it will give you a list of differences that the actual paid version on Steam and the Flash version have. So that's cool. That's actually a pretty interesting business model in my opinion, because it basically allows for an extended demo, and I think makes people a little less wary about spending some money because they maybe have kind of already figured out that it might be for them. And also, this is not an expensive game. It is $5. I'll just start out with the price this time. It's only a $5 game, and until June the 22nd of, this June. Yeah, okay. I wrote that down wrong. Until June 22nd, it is $4, so even $1 less than that. So let's get into it. It is a roguelike, as I mentioned, and you can go to the Enchanted Cave, and as you go deeper, the floors change in theme, and the enemies change in theme, and everything gets harder. Now, every 10 floors, at least every 10 floors that I've been to, I don't know if it continues that way, like forever until the end, but at least for now, every 10 floors is a shop where you can buy and sell items, and you can also start at that floor. However, you don't necessarily want to every time, and in fact, this time I'm going to start at floor 10 instead of 20. So here we go. And, the way this works is interesting in a couple of ways. For one, you don't actually keep a lot of your equipment whenever you escape. If you go to my inventory screen here, you can see I actually have a lot of equipment with me, but that's pretty much it. My inventory is basically empty aside from that, except for these which I kept for a specific reason, and my magic heal spell, which is very useful, as you'll see why later. And more or less, every item you get that does not have this yellow frame disappears. It is destroyed when you leave the dungeon, and you are encouraged to go as deep as you want and then eventually leave before you die, because of course it has permadeath. If your character dies, all of their equipment, their levels, and everything is gone, and you have to start over. But you're actually encouraged not to go until you die, but to go until you are near dead and need to escape. So let's just go to the next floor, and this is how the game works. So, the game has some similarities to desktop dungeons, because the enemies don't actually move like you do. You have turn-based movement, but the enemies don't move at all. They are in their permanent place, and you're kind of going through each floor of the dungeon trying to find the optimal path around. In other words, you don't have to kill every enemy on the floor in order to progress. You just have to get to the stairs. But of course, enemies often are blocking things like this crystal, which will give me a permanent increase to my maximum MP when I collect it. And that persists even when you leave, by the way. The crystals that you'll find are permanent upgrades. And basically getting items, chests, drops from enemies into the stairs. You're trying to figure out the most optimal way to do that without taking too much damage, so that you can both get good experience and loot, and actually keep going deeper into the dungeon, hopefully to find a way to escape later. The main way to escape is the wings item. There are these wings that let you run out of the dungeon, and you'll need to find those, because without those you basically can't get out. You may have noticed that there was no stairs up once I went down. You cannot go back. So you're basically... Oh, and there's the escape wings already. I got lucky. Alright, sweet. So you're basically risking at every floor you go as to how far you actually want to go. Like, how long will you continue going down and finding loot until you run into things that you can no longer fight effectively. Now, you may notice the combat system is a bit weird. So I just press once into an enemy and we fight in a turn-based fashion. That was only one button press. You don't click multiple times or anything. So the way the combat actually works is a bit strange. I mean, oh hey, another enchanted item there. Another one you can keep. Very useful, because you can sell those more reliably as well. And there's also a museum in town that you can keep your enchanted items that you found in, so you don't have to clog your inventory with stuff every time that you want to keep. Now, the combat system of roguelikes most of the time is very simple. Usually you just press towards an enemy, you attack, and they attack pretty much at the same time, and the actual complexity in a roguelike combat system doesn't come from the combat mechanics, because most of the time there really aren't any. The complexity comes from the weapons, items, and abilities that your character has and that your enemies have. In this case, it's fairly similar. You just press towards your enemy, and you take turns swinging at each other, essentially, until one of you dies. So, basically, whenever you engage in combat, that combat is going to go until either you or the enemy dies. And hopefully it's the enemy. Of course, I'm pretty powerful right now, and I'm killing things very quickly and not taking much damage at all because I have really good enchanted items that I've been able to keep. So a really nice katana and some very good armor, which means that things at this level of the dungeon aren't going to do any damage to me. The reason I wanted to start from here instead of floor 20 is because it quickly gets harder than this, and I wanted to get a little more experience because your levels are also persistent. Now, when you leave... You get that pizza out of my face. When you leave, you, like I said, lose all of your items, potions, ingredients, and everything that doesn't have this yellow frame. That means the item is enchanted. So all of this stuff, as soon as I escape the dungeon, is going to disappear, including your crafting ingredients. And the things that you keep is here. See, this is the loot screen. Artifacts. Any yellow framed item is an artifact. The stat gems you find during your run are also permanent, and the amount of experience and level ups you get, as well as the gold that you obtain. That's permanent. But everything else, all of your loose items, not so much. Which is very interesting, because a lot of times what a roguelike is go deeper into the dungeon, keep going on this run through until you die. But in this case, you're actually making multiple runs into the dungeon, several in fact, many dozen perhaps, till you get to the end. Going deeper and deeper each time, trying to find more and more items, more and more loot, and survive longer and longer before you actually have to leave, instead of dying, because dying, of course, resets everything. I'm going to upgrade my MP. MP is very useful for a couple of reasons, and that was a level up, so that's the main reason I wanted to start at floor 10, so I could get some more experience, and here's the level up system. This is pretty cool. So, obviously, as you saw when I leveled up, I got to choose to increase one of my stats. That's permanent, and also you have a skill tree. Oh yes, look at this thing. Pretty cool. It's not quite the Path of Exile skill world tree Yggdrasil, but it's still pretty cool. And you will get 3 points every level up to spend in these. So basically there are 3 paths. There's a sort of alchemist path. A lot of this involves the potion crafting system, gold drops, and a couple of other things. Mostly just like gold find and potion ingredient power and stuff like that. Then you have your warrior tree, so attack, critical, armor, things like that. Also XP bonuses. And then you have your mage tree, which is a bit different from the others because it actually contains active abilities that you can keep. Whereas these other two, these are all passives. Now this is mostly passives, but these big green circles right here are active abilities. So as you can see, heal is very early on. Heal is extremely useful because it more or less lets you survive longer. Because health potions, of course, since you don't keep items and shops are very rare, only like once every 10 levels, health potions are actually very valuable. So your health actually becomes one of your main resources because every time you fight, you're going to lose a little bit of health. Depending on, how deep you are. Obviously, I'm not taking much damage right now because I have really good armor, and these enemies are weak compared to my armor rating, but that will quickly change as I keep going. So, essentially... let's get some more mana for now. Essentially, you are trying to balance your health as a resource, because as you sort of take little pieces of damage every time, as you go lower, you're going to have to escape eventually. So you're trying to keep as much health as possible to keep going. So actually having a heal spell that's separate from potions is very valuable. But I'm doing fairly well right now because I'm a bit overpowered for this particular floor. But that's okay. It allows me to get some loot and stuff. So, as you can see, you can hold on an enemy and it will show you their stats. So this thing has 75 attack, 20 armor, has 10 defense against earth, it has 3 earth attack and 6 fire attack. This thing is actually pretty powerful. It's also weak to wind, or air. And actually, this katana has some air attack, so it's going to be pretty strong against them. But I only have 62 armor, which means that I'm actually going to take some damage every time this thing hits me, unless I dodge its attacks. So now we're starting to get into floors where the enemies are tough enough to be able to do damage to me. So every time I fight one, a little chunk of me is going to be left behind, and that's going to affect how long I can stay in the dungeon, getting loot, keeping up with everything, getting experience before I have to escape. That's actually a very interesting system. That's not normally how roguelikes work. It's a similar concept to how a lot of roguelikes work, the idea that you need to be very careful with a lot of resource management and things. But the idea that you can actually leave the dungeon and come back in refreshed, but without all of the extra loose equipment that you gained in the first place, and sort of start over from a certain point, is quite different and very interesting. There are also, in the town, there are many people that you can bring gold and items to that will trade you more powerful stuff, gold, special items. I saw one guy that was selling an obsidian shield, which looked pretty nice. Do I actually have a shield? No, I don't have an artifact shield to keep, so I might want to get that at some point. It wasn't that expensive. But, so, the town is sort of your persistent hub that you'll continually go back to. And there are various little things that can be done there to help you on your journey as you actually get deeper into the dungeon. The dungeon itself changes. Eventually, as you go deeper, you'll get into a sort of ice layer where everything is ice-themed, all the enemies are ice-themed and things like that. There's also like this undead-themed level of it. I don't know exactly how long each sort of section lasts, but the floors aren't all the same. As you continue down, not only do the enemies get tougher and the loot get better, but the themes actually change. So at this stage, the cave is just, sort of a cave theme, just stone and secret walls and basic enemies, but things get much more complicated later on. I guess which brings us to the longevity of the game. The game actually has 100 floors. This thing has 100 floors, which is a lot. That's a lot of floors. I've already read that one. So that's a lot of content to actually make your way through, and not only that, but the game has a very large variety of items, potions, and stuff like that. I think like over 300 total of items, potions, and abilities combined. That's a lot of stuff. There's a lot to be done in this game, and the feeling of going in each time and getting just a little bit farther is a really nice feeling of progression that makes you keep coming back to the dungeon and actually want to keep progressing through it, because you're going to be getting just a little bit better every time. Hopefully, maybe you find that piece of artifact equipment that you really needed, etc., etc. It's the sort of small bits of progression idea that a lot of roguelites are doing, but this is putting it into a roguelike and making you feel like you're just getting a little better each time, since your artifact equipment and levels and little stat gems actually keep per floor. So there's also a crafting system, which is really cool, so I wanted to show you this. Now, you'll find these forges occasionally throughout the dungeon, and I think there's one guaranteed at every shop. The forges are the only place where you can enchant your items. You can craft potions anywhere, and I'll show you that after this. But as you can see, these are the ingredients I've got, and every ingredient has at least one of these abilities. And these abilities are basically effects that can be added by crafting them into things, but you can only choose one from each. So, let's see. This has both slots taken up. This doesn't. Let's enchant this. So if I go to enchant my chainmail skirt, very manly, I can choose basically anything to put here, but HP restore is something that actually can't be put into items. You can have HP regeneration, which I have, that's why I heal 3 HP after every battle, but just flat out restoring can only be used in potions. So, what I'd like to do is put some HP regen on here, and since this also has XP bonus I can choose, do I want a 2% XP bonus or 3 HP regen after every battle? Well, I want the HP regen, definitely. And maybe a bit more defense as well. This will give me 3 more defense. So there, it's going to cost me 30 mana. That's why mana is important, because it's not only used for casting spells, it's also used for enchanting, and mana potions are quite rare. So there we go. And kaboom, enchant. There we go. That is now enchanted with those 2 things. So this is really cool. I love crafting systems in games that let you mess around with stuff a lot and kind of make silly things, and this definitely does. It's pretty fantastic, actually, with how much variety there is in what you can actually craft. There's a pretty significant amount of ingredient variety, and each one having, you know, its own kind of flavor of abilities to impart on your equipment is pretty cool. And also, the potion crafting system works in the exact same way, only you can do it without a table or a forge. So I could put, say, Loganite in and white morsels in, and this will make me a potion that restores 46 health when I drink it, and gives me, say, 3 extra attack for 2 battles. So if I craft it, boom, I can now put it in my hotbar. Crafted potion right there. So now I can drink that, and it will, like that, heal me up for 46, and now I have extra attack for 2 battles. The effectiveness of potions and their duration can be increased by spending level up points in that alchemy skill tree as you level up. So that's pretty much all of the systems in the game. As you can see, it's fairly simple, but the systems layered together to make something very interesting and actually quite unique in the roguelike genre. The idea that you need to kind of continuously get just a little bit farther every time and eventually escape back out of the dungeon to rest, restore your health, and hopefully come back with some nice artifact equipment that you don't actually lose when you leave. So this time I'm actually getting a fairly significant amount of equipment. So if I go, let's see, Magic Pickaxe, by the way, lets you actually remove a wall. Well, my katana is better because it's enchanted, but this does allow me to enchant it differently if I want to, or sell it. Let's see, my helmet's better than those, my armor's better than those, my manly skirt is better than that. Boots are always nice. I do need to enchant these boots because they could actually be better than these if I enchanted them, so I need to work on that. I actually don't have any gauntlets, so this is nice to finally get. I almost have a full set of artifact equipment, so that means I can actually start much higher reliably. When you first start the game out, you're going to be continually starting lower because you're not going to have the actual item variety, the actual amount of persistent gear that you need to actually be powerful from the beginning. Even if you have several levels on you, the level up passives are very small in effect. They're cumulative over time, they get, you know, quite useful later, but for the first several levels, at least 10 or I'd say 10, 15, the actual level up bonuses aren't going to be enough to keep up with the enemy progression without gear. So that's the idea. This also is kind of an anti-grinding method, because the number of enemies on any individual floor is limited. As you can see, once you kill all the enemies on the floor, that's it. You have to move on to get more enemies. And the other anti-grinding measure is, of course, the fact that you can't keep getting a whole bunch of equipment, leaving, going back in, getting a whole bunch of equipment, and stuff like that, because the artifact equipment is much more rare than normal stuff that you'll simply lose when you leave. So there's several anti-grinding measures in place that make it, I think, more enjoyable and make the game a kind of jump in, jump out experience. You can hop in, play for a couple of floors if you don't have a lot of time, leave and feel like you actually accomplished something, and then hop back in later and do it again. It is one of those little games that you can hop into very quickly and hop out of just as quickly and still feel that you got something from it and you're not wasting your time. It's small, bite-sized chunks of enjoyable dungeon crawling that are kind of suffused with this overall progression of leveling up and getting better equipment for your next run. And that is a very good feeling, actually. Also, one other thing to say, it has a very good soundtrack. The soundtrack is actually by Grant Kirkhope, and if you don't know who that is by name, I pretty much guarantee you know his music. He's made music for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, very good soundtrack. He made music for Viva Pinata, which actually won him some awards. And if we go back even farther, some of the sort of favorite gaming classics he made the music for. Things like GoldenEye 007 and Banjo-Kazooie. So, in other words, the guy actually is a bit of a legend, even if you don't know his name. He has done a very fantastic job, as usual, with the soundtrack of this game, with some really nice themes. The town theme is kind of Harry Potter-ish, actually, and the music will change as you go, of course, into the dungeon. It's nice. It's a really nice soundtrack. It's very fantasy, but not generic at all. It's actually very nice sounding, so definitely get the soundtrack, by the way. Highly recommend it. So yeah, that is the Enchanted Cave 2. Like I said, it's $5 on Steam, or if you're watching before June 22nd, you can get it for $4. And if you're not sure if the gameplay is for you, if you want to experience some more of it yourself, you can look at the Steam page at the differences between the full version and the Flash version, and then go on Congregate and play the Flash version for free of the Enchanted Cave 2, and use it as kind of a demo to see if it's something you would like. I like it. It's a game that you can jump in and out of very quickly. If I'm rendering a video or something and I just want to play something really quick, I might hop into this and play a few floors. And sometimes it still has enough content and enough complexity and mechanics, especially with the crafting system and the artifact system, to actually warrant also sitting down for a long period of time and playing if you want to. So it's not the kind of game that can only be played in bite-sized chunks. It's very accessible to be played for longer periods as well. So it's nicely varied, and it's something I think for a lot of people. And if you're not sure about roguelikes, or you're not very into roguelikes or very good at them, this is a very accessible one because it's a lot easier than others, but it still has a challenge and it still has variety without being like an extremely dumbed down roguelike. It's just not as difficult as a lot of other more dedicated ones are. Which, of course, is always nice to see. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I definitely think that he's done a good job in creating it. It is pretty fantastic, and it has a nice community as well, because the Flash game got a lot of fans, and for good reason. It's actually pretty sweet. So, yeah, this is the Enchanted Cave 2, everyone. Any questions, comments, feel free to leave them. I will see them, probably. And, check it out. There's really no reason not to try it if it even mildly interests you, because you can have a free Flash version, and it's only $5 anyway, so thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.